Boom. We're doing it. Episode 1. And holy man, we got Dusty.
Hello.
The mastermind of Fish in a Birdcage. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We met at a festival that shan't be named.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to hear about that experience?
Yeah, I want to hear what you think of when we met.
How we met. Yeah. So I was walking by the stage that you and Josh were playing at, and the whole room, if you want to call it a room, because it was kind of like an outside, kind of like a, sheltered area, and it was raining really hard outside, but like coming in and just seeing all of these people just jam out so hard to what you and Josh were doing, and I was just like so into it, like there was a lot of music that weekend, but you guys were like the highlight as far as the music that I was like being exposed to. And I was so excited to talk to you guys. And then to find out that both of you were from Calgary too, was just like, yes, new friends that we can, get together and jam. And
yeah. Okay. Do you remember this though? We actually met before that during our sound check.
Yes.
You did catch our set later that night.
Right.
But when we were sound checking that morning, Josh and I are sitting there. I'm on keys, he's on drums.
Yeah, I wanted to try your piano.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those
it's a Roland like 30X.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
That's what I have.
Nice.
But Josh and I were sitting there because I'm pretty sure the sound guys were just doing drugs all night and haggard and unable to do their jobs really. So we were just kind of sitting there waiting to sound check.
Yeah.
And then, you walk by, you're like, hey, can I try your piano? And you played us a little song. And then you also came over to like the Fermented Beat Orchestra camp hangout with your accordion. Mm-hmm. And you serenaded us with the accordion a bit.
Electric accordion.
Yeah. And we were like, this guy's pretty neat.
Yeah.
And then, you showed us your trailer with what was the fancy keyboard you had in the trailer?
That's the Korg SV2. And so it's a really, I love the SV2 for the fact that it runs the sound through
tubes.
Tubes. Yeah. And so really, really warms up the sound. And I really dig that piano for a live. It's 3 times the weight of like any other traditional like stage piano, but it's really it's really nice.
It's a beast.
Yeah.
But I got to say of the festival that shan't be named, I think meeting you was probably the highlight.
It was so fun
because a lot of other things at that festival were shit, and that's why it shan't be named, because we don't throw shade here, or we do it but secretly.
Yeah.
Okay, we're doing this because you have a new album.
I do. Yeah.
By the time this drops, the album will be available.
Yeah.
It's called Mentors, right?
Yeah. Mentors, yeah.
Okay, so you gave me a sneak peek at your studio, which was cool. I think that was actually before it was even mixed and mastered, and it sounded dope. And then, you sent me the mastered sneak peek, and I listened to the whole thing today. Yeah. I love it. It's beautiful.
Thank you. It was produced by Howard Reddycop. And he produced like a bunch of Mother's biggest hits, as well as Tegan and Sarah. He worked with them quite a bit too. He produced one of my favorite albums, Tick Tock Tick, by the Zolas, which is the reason why my work exists in the way that it does, which is another story that we could talk about during this.
So you're saying like that Zola's album had a huge impact on you?
Yeah. So like what ended up happening, so I like going back probably at least 10 years at this point, there was a good buddy of ours, Sebastian, that came into the garage that we were all hanging out at one point. And he said, I'm going to change your guy's life. And he had a burnt copy of Tick Tock Tick. And he threw it into the CD player, and we all just jammed out to that album for, the next hour and just loved it. And then from that point forward, I would always listen to that album, like when I was driving around and that kind of stuff. And I just loved, the piano work in there is really, really great. Fast forward a couple years later, and I was just like hanging out at a open mic, and I met this lady, very talented lady named Chloe Ann Lloyd, and she said, "Yeah, did you know like the Zolas actually have a studio like a couple blocks away from here?" And I was like, "No way!" Like this band, right? Like, so I reached out to Tom, and I said, I've got a bunch of originals that I'm working on, and and it would be nice to record them with you. And he said, I have no room. I have no space. Like, I'm like, my schedule is filled.
I'm a busy bee.
Yeah, busy bee. And I was like, can we at least meet and can I see the space? And I came in and played him Fish in a Birdcage on the cello. And he was like, we're going to make this work. We're going to like, I'll take weekends. Let's do some.
You convinced him.
Yeah. No,
through his busy bee schedule that he could make some room to make some more honey.
Yeah.
Nice.
But what's really crazy though is, so I did my first 2 albums with Tom in the Zola's studio, and he played the piano on those tracks. And then it wasn't until when I got to my 5th album that I was like, I'm going to reach out to a producer that is kind of like who in the world would I want to work with like first? Like, top
almost
of the
like
line.
It's a dream shot.
Yeah, dream
it's
shot.
It's not going to happen.
Right? Like, exactly. I was just going to reach out to him to just see if it was even possible. And I reached out to him and I was just like, hey, so I'm doing my 5th album. Like, here's the demo tracks that I'm working on, like projects, Fish in a Birdcage, that kind of thing. And then I shot off that email. It wasn't even TikTok Tick that I'm kind of like bouncing back and forth here. But Oh My Heart by Mother, he was the one who produced that. Howard, yeah. And so Oh My Heart was like the album that I was just like, I want to work with that producer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when I found out, when I was looking through his biography, that I found out that he was the one who produced TikTok Tick.
Whoa.
And so that's crazy because it was the thing that like, it created this like crazy loop where he produced the album that led me into the first studio that I produced my first 2 albums with. I thought
so. Tom was the producer and piano player for Zola's?
For the Zolas, yeah, but right. I didn't realize that he wasn't the producer of that particular album. Howard was the one that produced that particular album.
So Tom, the guy who produced your first 2 albums, was kind of buddies with Howard, who produced TikTok Tick, and Oh My Heart.
Yeah.
So there's a triangle link.
Yeah, and when I sent off that email, what happened is Howard, he received that email. And he was going, Fish in a Birdcage. That's an interesting band name. And when he said that out loud, who happened to be in the room but Tom?
Oh, weird.
Yeah, and I didn't know that they hung out. And they don't hang out on a regular basis, but like Tom just happens to invite Howard and his partner to come and spend some time at the lake. So Howard like said, "Oh, Fish in a Birdcage, that's an interesting name." Tom said, "Why are you saying that name?" And then he filled him in real time.
I produced that guy. I know this guy.
Yeah, exactly, right. And so that's when Howard reached out and was just like, "Yeah, I'm interested." And so,
that's rad.
It's
okay.
Really,
that actually
really cool.
ties into something I wanted to talk to you about because you've worked with. We don't need to say whatever names, but you work with a few producers, right? So Tom, Cody, Howard, and Josh too. Yeah, my close friend Josh is producing stuff.
And then Thomas Gonzell. So there was 2 Toms.
Okay.
The first,
so that's like 5 different producers you've worked with.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm so curious about your take on what is the producer doing and how does the producer affect and change what you're bringing?
What the end
based on these
is.
Different producers you worked with, what have you noticed that a different producer can offer you?
Right. Okay. So what was really great about working with Tom for the first 2 albums, I'll try to go in chronological order and kind of talk about my experience with working with each of them.
Yeah.
Is that working with Tom at first was that I was stepping into a professional grade space as a recording amateur. Right. So basically, like what happened is when I first recorded with Tom, I had 4 tracks that we were doing. And because I didn't know what the process was going to be, the 2 weeks of time that it was going to take was focused on just those 4 tracks. Right. Because not only was there like, basically what I'm trying to say is because I didn't know what I was getting myself into, I didn't have the prep work done in order to optimally make my time efficient.
Like you kind of weren't ready in a professional sense.
Yeah, totally.
So you were in there a little bit like, oh, we're going to figure this out.
Yeah.
And producer man's like, this should kind of already be figured out.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, there was, a bunch of that. Like, for example, like, it was really something that I did a lot when I was a kid, when I was like, learning piano, was playing to a metronome, right? But then I didn't do that for many, many, many years.
Oh.
And now I'm in a studio and I have to play to a metronome. It has to be on the click. And that was hard for me. I wasn't my timing was not all that
I've
good.
had that identical experience, like playing guitar in my basement, just me and the guitar. And then my older brother kind of taught me some stuff about Cubase and recording and stuff. That's who I did my first recording session with, was my brother.
Yeah.
And the click came on and I was just like, oh, I suck. Like, I thought I was so cool.
You truly find out how good your timing or how bad your timing is.
And you can deceive yourself when you're just alone playing.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So play to a kick.
Click, kids.
Okay, so Tom, you learned a bit of that. Show up more prepared.
So So and then so when I came in for my second album, again, super professional the whole way through. Like I got it was expensive. It was $9,000 for my first album. It was $9,000 for my second album. But with the same amount of time, I was able to record 7 tracks instead of 4. Right.
You're more prepared.
Because the prep work was done. Right. I knew what I was getting myself into. And I was able to just be a more efficient person within the studio to make it so that there was enough time to be able to finish 7 instead of 4. Right. And then what ended up happening is so I learned a lot through that process of how to record things and how to and I was learning a lot about production too, because it's like, with the first album, Tom was gracious enough to kind of explain things as we were going through it. And then the second time around, he didn't have to explain as much of the things as we were going through it, right? And I was able to ask certain things, right? Like it's like as you get more familiar in the studio, you start to get more terminology, right? Where you're just like, if you're just like, well, I want this cello to have more, I don't know, something, right? But it, that
being
was
able to articulate music is its own, like there's obviously the whole theory world
thing. Yeah.
But production and sound, there's another, it's like, I want it warmer.
Right. Exactly.
Like, the timbre needs to change. There's so many weird words.
Yeah. So it's like, so that was me at the beginning where it's just like, this just needs to be better, like, because you can't really explain it,
and producers kind of hate that shit,
for sure. And then
you're like, make it cold. Make it blue and cold.
And then the second time going into there, there was a little bit more terminology where I was able to like communicate that faster and more efficiently. And then going into the third album, I was working with Thomas Kinsell, who is just such an awesome musician, and he does jazz piano with his lovely wife Tina, and she's a great vocalist, and they do like a lot of jazz stuff, a lot of jazz gigs. So working with him, what was nice about that is it was like a less formal, less constrictive environment, so we had more time, and that is great.
And he's like a legit musician too.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, Tom is too. Tom's the piano player of the Zolas, right?
Oh, right.
So, I mean, there's that, right? So he's got a lot of musicality to him. But it was just a different experience because it was in the basement of, like a
little more
Thomas
casual,
more casual. And then so what that meant is that there was just more time to refine things, right? And then I think we did 13 tracks. Maybe I that might be wrong. But we did quite a few tracks on that third album.
So I'm curious with these two guys. They both are piano players.
Yep.
So you're showing up with songs pretty much fully written, and saying, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
How much are they offering musically in terms of changes, or is it pretty much just let's record your vision as your vision? And
so the starting point of every song starts with rhythms. Like I'm going to have the chord structure. I'm going to have the length of the song down. I'm going to have like an idea of what the BPM is going to be. I'm going to have an idea. Like I know exactly what I'm going to do as far as the singing of it. I don't have, let's say, the harmonies written. I might have a little bit of an idea of where that's going to go, but I really, a lot of the time, I get producers involved to have their vision take my shell, which is just the baseline of the instrument,
cello part and vocals,
cello part
usually.
and vocals, or the guitar part and vocals, or the piano part and vocals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then just be like, I want you to see how much you can color around it. And as they're doing that, I'm going to be like, I like that. I don't like that.
Right.
Like let's try and see if we can change that a little bit. These are the notes that I'm hearing in comparison to what you're doing, right? Like, and what's been really great about the producers that I've worked with so far is that they have been so on board to let me make my creative choices, and not let ego get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the same way, I have been trying to, like, if they have ideas, let them run with it. Right.
Especially if it's a good idea.
Yeah. Because most of the time, right. Like I love where we end up. Like there was one that the most recent one, Howard, we were doing Badger, and it was like during the choruses that he's just like, I feel like this kind of like Bohemian Rhapsody kind of vibe where we're going to stack harmonies like this. And he gave me this like harmony idea where I was like, I don't know if that's
that one has a bunch
work.
of weird vampy things in the back, right? Like yelling and shit.
Yeah, but you know what? Like I was just like, I don't know if that's gonna work, but let's try. Let's actually take that to fruition and see where your vision is going. And where we ended up. I was just like, oh, I love this. I love this so much. It's not where I would have taken it at all, but I'm really excited that we ended up there. Right.
Yeah. That's the best part of collaborating is you get this other brain that, you land in a place where you would never land on your own.
Totally. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Cool. So then Tom,
so
then
Tom,
Cody.
Tom. Yeah. So, I can never say his name properly, but Tom, Tiburowski. This is good to say this on
Tiburowski.
Yeah.
He'll forgive you.
So cool. So those are the first two, and then Thomas Gonzell, and then Cody Bardwell for the fourth album. And then with Cody, what ended up happening is I moved back to Red Deer to after living in Ireland for a while. And I came back and I was just like, Cody and I worked together way back when, even before Fish in a Birdcage. And so I reached out to him to just be like, hey man, like I have this idea for an album, and I know you're a producer and I would love to work with you on an album. And I asked my community that had been growing at the time, that is just like, I want to do a GoFundMe for an RV and a trailer, and I want to convert that into a mobile studio on wheels.
Damn.
And so we ended up raising $15,000 through GoFundMe, through the Fish in a Birdcage community, which so grateful to have people that are willing to support it, and in such a huge way.
Yeah.
And they're like, I mean, I think that the monthly listeners around that time was probably somewhere around 30,000 monthly listeners. So it was like not a huge amount of listenership, but a lot of people that were really on board for the vision, right? And then so we took the RV and the trailer, and we were in there for 9 months, just traveling all over North America.
Whoa.
And the vision was, because I was streaming on Twitch full time at the time, was that I'm going to reach out to as many of these amazing Twitch artists as I can and see if they're down to get together and do a stream together and possibly record within this album that I'm working on.
Yeah, we'll drive to you in our trailer.
Yeah. And it brought us to some wild places. Like, the first thing that we did was lived in Cody's sister's kind of land that she had in Kelowna, just out in the middle of nowhere in this forest. And we were there for 3 months in the middle of winter. And that was hard living. I'll tell you what.
It was probably cold in the trailer too.
Super cold. Like,
you're trying to play cello with them cold fingies.
Yeah, like it was intense, because like it was I had to make sure that both of the trailer and the RV had propane at all times, and that was a huge hurdle, because we would have to, in order for us to actually record. So the setup is like this, where in the RV we were using it as the recording space, and then the trailer was the mixing desk space, right?
Yeah.
So there was like a mixing, like I ripped out the kitchen, put a mixing desk. I ripped out the bathroom, which was a disgusting process because it was, from the 80s, and you had to take out the black water tank and all
Rusty
that stuff.
poo-poo.
Oh, it was so gross.
Damn.
But then, changed that into a vocal booth. So where so that was like foamed the inside of this shower slash bathroom to make it into a vocal booth.
It made your shit sound so good in there too. Yeah. You foam up those walls, that acoustic treatment. Let the fart rip, no echo.
Yeah,
it's perfect
for sure. Yeah. And
did it stay as a bathroom though, or no?
No.
Okay.
Not a bathroom. There was a bathroom in the RV, but yeah, the propane situation was really tough because we had to run a snake. I guess I should probably explain what a snake is. So a snake is having like maybe 50 XLR connection points where you can connect microphones into it and then run a large cable between the two trailers. And logistically, it was very tough because you had to make sure that like the hole was not so big that a lot of the cold air from the -20 outside is coming in, right? And running that cable through both of the trailers was very tricky. But every time I needed to go get propane every 3 days, we had to unrun the snake, right? Because we didn't want to take both the trailer and the RV into town, which was quite a ways away.
So then you got to reconnect these 50 XLRs or however many it is.
Every time, right? And it was just like such a huge process. But yeah, so that's where we got the foundation of all the tracks, and then there was this giant snowstorm that was coming. And we had to get out of there, or else we were going to be trapped. And that day in particular, I'm taking my dog for a quick walk around around this circle on the property that we did so many times, and she friggin' saw a squirrel, and she ran after the squirrel, and she ended up diving into this like ravine that I had never seen before. This is like, we have to leave, and now my dog has just
lost in a ravine.
And so and snow is just barreling down, and like I had to trudge through this, walk all the way to the edge of the ravine, and then go through the middle of it through this thick bushes looking for my dog, and just snow up to here.
Damn.
And I'm calling for her, and she's not saying anything back. And I finally get to the spot, and she's just laid over and just given up on life,
just chilling,
but
laying in the fluff.
Got her, and then got her into the RV, and then we were driving over the mountains, and there were 2 other cars we saw on that whole trip because it had been whitewashed completely. One of them was a snowplow, which made it so that we could see the road for like 5 minutes, and then there was another car coming the other way. But that's when we lost our brakes.
Oh God!
Yeah, so we were going over this massive mountain, and the brakes ended up breaking on us, and I had to use the trailer brakes to actually go over this gigantic mountain pass. It was so sketchy.
Damn, we almost lost you. And the album.
It was so insane.
That would have been bad.
And then over the next 6 months, it was driving all the way down the California coast, and then zigzagging all the way, meeting up with 30 different Twitch artists. And we got
all over the states.
All over the states, yeah. And we got like Tommy Graven. That was so great. We ended up stopping at this place. Man, who's the person that wrote "Fly Like an Eagle" again? It's the
Fly Like an Eagle.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I forget.
So the band who wrote that, it's escaping me for the moment.
I remember it's on Space Jam though.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
We stopped there at the studio that was written at.
Cool.
And just lived there for 2 weeks, and
wild.
And yeah, while I was there, I was like, wow, this is the studio that "Fly Like an Eagle" was written at, and I started singing that all the time, just "Fly Like an Eagle," and I could not get that song out of my head for the remainder of the trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're flying through America, dude. They're the eagle. That's the country of the eagle.
Yeah.
You're just embodying the spirit.
Yeah. I hope that I'm just
Seal. Thank you, Wayne. By the way, shout out to the producer, Wayne Toe.
Thanks, Wayne.
Okay. So you went on this crazy quest with Cody in the trailer.
Tons of those musicians into
and Cody's a bit of a beast as a multi-instrumentalist, right?
Yes. Plays
I've jammed with him a couple times with banjo. What's the
hammer dulcimer?
The dulcimer.
Yeah, piano. He's very, very gifted in terms of how his musical mind is able to adapt and and do that kind of a thing. Yeah.
So he sprinkled a lot onto fourth album?
Onto the fourth album, yeah. So he did the production of the fourth album, and the approach of the fourth album was like, I want to do something different where we're not just recording songs but we're taking it in almost like we're letting the songs that are there dictate this or the stories that are within those songs to dictate the instrumentation that's going to happen around it. So it's almost like it's its own audio kind of movie, if you will. It's really strange. So it's like Man-O-War, for example. There is a pirate ship battle that happens within that song, right? Like, so
in the lyrics.
Within the lyrics, but there's actually like a pirate battle solo,
right,
that we built within there.
And like pirates going, Arr. What is a pirate battle solo?
It's really cool. Like,
okay, now I gotta listen to it. That's Man-O-War?
Yeah. It's really, really neat. So like we actually had it so that like we knew where the microphone was placed, which was on the one ship. And then we're like, okay, so this is where the microphone is. Now we're gonna have the privateers come from the left side. And then there's going to be like swinging between the ships, right? So you can hear these things.
This is
happen,
like sound
right?
effects,
sound
like
effects,
pirates
just
running
sound effects,
and ropes
right?
swinging,
like,
and
and so there's like, there's the double bass playing, which the guy who inspired me to start on cello, Nils, he was playing the double bass, and so the double bass is going, and that's the only thing that's holding the song together at that moment. And then you just have this soundscape of pirates coming, privateers, swords going, there's cannons going off. The cannon hits the ship, and then the ship starts sinking, and you can hear all of the pirates cheer. And it's
whoa, that's a trip.
So with that in mind, it was just
super
kind of like
immersive and experimental.
Exactly, right? Like we were trying to really immerse people within the story for that fourth album. And that's, so there's a lot of that within the fourth album.
And now Mentors is album number 5.
Mentors is album number 5.
But simultaneously, you're working with my close friend Josh.
Yeah.
On album you guys just put out a crazy tune that's been blowing up.
Yeah.
The Rule 34 songs.
Yeah.
Exploding like crazy.
Yeah.
Josh is pumped. He loves working with you. So now how does Josh differ from past producers? Like, what does he bring into the table?
So what's neat about this situation with Josh in comparison?
Other than he's a dick. You hear that, Josh? You fucking dick. I'm just kidding. I love Josh.
He's great.
He's a good boy.
He's really fun to work with.
He's the best boy.
Yeah, he is. He's really, he's been so much
so competent, so fun to hang out with.
And meticulous, which is I love about his workmanship. So like what's been happening with him is, Rule 34. I guess, should I talk about the story of how?
Go for it.
I guess. So I'm working as a sushi chef in Victoria, and it's on a houseboat called Rock and Roll and Sushi.
This was a long time ago?
This was a while ago. Yeah. This was, I don't know. It was when I lived in Victoria. I bet you 8 years ago, probably.
Making sushi.
So I'm making sushi. And the owner of that business, she loved when I would go and play cello for the customers. So we would get all of their sushi on their table, and then she would go grab your cello, go play the music, right? So I would grab my cello and I'd sit next to these tables, and I would play some of my original stuff. And who I ended up playing for was some people that were working on 50 Shades of Grey in Victoria.
The kinky movie or the book? The
movie, right? So they were working on 50 Shades of Grey,
kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, and I guess this was number 2, so 50 Shades of Grey 2. And they were just like, you know what? Like, we love this. This is super unique. And if you wrote a song for 50 Shades of Grey and got it recorded and sent it to me, I will try to pitch it and see if I can get it in the movie.
Whoa,
right?
And
I was like, whoa, this is actually like an actual opportunity to get my music in a movie. And so like that night I like went home, read a couple pages of the book, and I was like, I got this.
Yeah.
A
little spanky, chokey, slappy.
Yeah,
okay, I got
exactly.
It. Yeah.
And so I, went into that song with the intention of portraying that character, just being like trying to get in that headspace of the main character and be like, yeah. And so, I wrote that song, and then I was like, I should get it recorded, but I didn't have the money to go out and get it recorded at the time.
Damn, this is like 8 years ago.
Yeah. And so that opportunity just came and went.
Yeah.
And then we were getting close to Rule 34, and Rule 34, if you're not familiar, Rule 34 is a rule on the internet. There's like a whole collection of rules, but there's been a couple of rules that stuck around. Rule 34 is one of them, and I think Rule 63 is another one. I could be wrong on that.
Rule 34 is a meme,
but Rule 34 is a meme,
right?
where it's like if you can think of it, there's porn of it, right? And so because I was doing this whole thing where I've been labeling all of my songs as rules from the beginning, and there's a whole different story with why I did that.
Right.
But when I got to Rule 34, I was like,
time to bring out the sexy song.
I was like, I do have that song in my back pocket that I wrote for 50 Shades of Grey.
Right.
I got to do that one.
And the timing of this perfectly coincides with kind of starting to work with Josh.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. And so, like that's
he's been filling me in. Like, he's like, man, this song is blowing up.
Like, it was crazy. I think it was like, it hit like 100,000 streams within the first, I can't even remember, like, if it was like the first couple of hours. Yeah. And then for a couple million.
Right now on Spotify, it's like 19 million almost or something.
Yeah,
right?
it's more than
and
double.
That's not even saying like Apple Music and other things, right? That's just Spotify is at
more than
million.
double my previously most popular song, and I thought that was doing insanely well.
Holy,
yeah. Fish in a Birdcage. I was, I was like, this song is really nailing it, and then Rule 34 came out and just exploded more than double any other song, and it's
you're like an enigma, man. Like, I know tons of musicians, but the success you've had in streaming land.
Yeah, it's been nuts.
I don't know anyone who's even close. Mm-hmm. Like, it's kind of alien level shit.
Yeah.
And you know that.
Yeah, well,
right?
like I was wildly impressed at the project at 300,000 monthly listeners.
Okay, but tell the story of how your dog, is it Poco?
Poco, yeah.
Kind of was a pivotal part of your project exploding.
Yeah. Okay, so I was doing street performing in Ireland for over a year, and what had happened during that time is that I was making really good money doing street performing, like just doing looping with the cello on the streets of Galway, but I did not want to busk through another winter because it was so friggin' cold in Ireland during the winter that I was like, I'm going to see if I can move to Spain for the 3 months of winter so I don't have to busk through another Irish winter.
Smart, senor.
Yeah,
very smart.
So I planned to do that, and then I moved over to Spain, and I'm living there, and I have this 4-month-old puppy that I brought with me from Ireland.
Aww.
Yeah, and so she's super young at the time. She has, and the thing is that she had all of her vaccines, but while we were out, she ended up getting parvovirus, which is just not. It's like essentially it can be a death wish, like the survival rate is really low, especially if left untreated.
Damn.
And so she got parvovirus, insanely hard week. So what happened is it was Friday night, and she started throwing up, and then she started crawling under the bed, and it was like really weird behavior. And I was like, it's probably something that she ate, but it's like, but I should probably check with a vet just to make sure. The vet was open for another 15 minutes. So I picked her up and I booked it down there. And, we were trying to communicate back and forth. He speaks Spanish. I speak English. It wasn't working very well. But
you're like, mi perro es no fuerte.
Yeah.
Sí, por favor, medicina.
Yeah, mi español es muy malo, But he took her and he said, yeah, she's got parvovirus. She's got to stay here. We've got to hook her up to an IV drip. And so that's what they did is over the next week, she fought for her life. It was insanely hard. And there was a time when I couldn't sleep for about 3 days during that process, just because of how stressed and worried I was. And, at a certain point I opened up Reddit just to doom scroll and try to take my mind off of it. And there was someone playing the kalimba on the front page called The Singularity. And I'll always be so grateful to The Singularity for changing my life. Cause I clicked on that stream and their kalimba playing.
Like that's the little thumb drum?
Yeah, it was the thumb piano. Yeah. So they were playing that to an incredible degree, like really good thumb piano player. And I watched them play over the next hour, and it calmed me down enough to be able to actually sleep for the first time in 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, several days later, I get my dog back and she's still contagious with this virus. But she's made it over. She's, out of the woods. She's just got to recover. And so, we're in the apartment. We've got pee pads on the deck so that, we're not walking out and exposing other dogs. And I'm just stuck inside my apartment until she's not contagious, like for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like,
little quarantine. Is this pre-COVID?
This was a little after COVID.
So you had some experience with the quarantine.
Little bit of the quarantine.
Had to bunker away
for sure. Yeah. But so I'm sitting there being like, I can't busk. I can't go out. And I was just kind of like, well, maybe I can hook up a webcam and a little audio interface that I just happen to have. And I was just like, maybe I can do the same thing for somebody else that this person did for me.
It can be the kalimba thumb medicine.
Right? The kalimba thumb medicine. Yeah, for someone else. And so I hooked it up and I pressed, I read a little guide on like how to go live on Reddit. RPAN is what used to be called. And I went go live and then it said live on the top. And I was like, oh, I guess I should go. I didn't have a microphone hooked up. I couldn't see the amount of listeners that were watching, and I couldn't see the chat because I didn't realize you had to scroll to the left to see all of that information in real time. Mm-hmm. I learned that later, but I was like, okay. And so I started playing and I just did my busking set. And I looked at the time and I was like, okay, like 50 minutes. I was like, okay, that's good. That's, reasonable. And then I clicked end and it was just like 380,000 people just saw you play.
Whoa.
And I was like,
on your first stream.
What? Yeah.
Holy.
On my first stream. And I was like, what the shit?
Yeah.
And I had 3 albums out at the time. And I looked at that and I went, maybe this is a way that I can start like promoting those albums that not very many people are listening to. Right. And so I just started doing it every single day. And what
interneted.
Yeah, I started interneting.
Legitly.
And
it's freaking work, man. Like your project, like people have asked me, like, what do you think of, like, isn't it crazy how big it's got? Mm-hmm. It actually, in a way, doesn't surprise me now that I know the story and know you, because the music's interesting and unique, but it's also like catchy and kind of like nice and easy to listen to and easy for, I think, a lot of people to like.
Thank you.
But you freaking grinded at interneting.
Grind at internet.
It wasn't luck.
For a year and a half.
Yeah.
Like streamed every day. And I streamed until I hit the front page. And it was just completely at random when it would just cycle you onto the front page. So like some days I would stream 3 hours and hit the front page and have it for 30 minutes and just be like, okay, good enough, right? Like I hit my 200,000 view quota for the day.
Wild.
Like I'm good. Or other days I would stream for 10 hours and then finally hit the front page and hold it for 15 minutes and, like have 68,000 views and be like, well, hit the front page. I had a successful day, because it was just like, I was just looking at it like every day I just hit that front page no matter how long it takes me.
That's interesting.
And then
just
promote
set a
the
very
project.
Clear goal. I'm going to play until I get bumped to the Reddit top page.
Yeah.
And then I know I've at least done good enough today.
Yeah.
And are people like donating money?
And people did. Yeah.
Okay.
I set up like donation things.
Right.
And people were insanely generous for so much of it. Like, I mean, I can remember there was the community has been so amazing, right? Like it's I'm so grateful to like the whole Discord community, as well as just like the people that followed the journey from the start. It was so wildly crazy. But like one of the things that happened is I didn't have a guitar, and I there in Ireland. So I rented this guitar called a Breed Love, and it's a beautiful guitar. But I got this guitar, I started playing it on live streams, and then after a couple of months with it, I was like, I got to give this guitar back, but I really don't want to. I've fallen in love with this thing. I was renting it, right? And so I told my community that, and they were just like, set up a GoFundMe, and I set it up for $1,300.
Wow!
And within that stream, they paid for it. Yeah,
man.
Yeah. The people that had just been watching me for months were just like, here you go. Here's your new guitar. And I was like, amazing. Like, it was,
Okay. So 1.5 years streaming on Reddit.
Yeah.
Pretty much every day.
Yeah.
And basically not busking outside anymore. Pretty much just busking inside.
Pretty much. Yeah.
And then I remember you telling me, was there some switch and Reddit stopped doing music streaming thing?
Reddit stopped doing the RPAN at a certain point. I was going back and forth between Reddit and Twitch, and the reason why is because Twitch is better for donations. They have a better system set up for donations. So I was like, I'd go on Reddit and then I'd hit the front page and I'd play for 30 minutes. And then I'd be like, if you like what you're hearing, I'm going to go over to Twitch and you can follow me over there and I'm going to be playing over there. And if you don't want to follow me on Twitch, that's totally fine. Go to Spotify, like all my songs, help my algorithm, do that kind of thing. I was constantly promoting the shit out of my project, right? It was like, yeah.
And no, you're good at promoting. Even when we first met you're like, here's a sticker, here's this is the thing. Like, and you're not shy about it.
I've always been that person.
Yeah.
In the way that like, I really, really, really believe in my project, first of all. But then the other thing is that like, I mean, I did sales for so many years that it's just like, did cold calling, so much rejection.
Yeah.
Like,
well, you're not expecting it to like just happen automatically.
Yeah.
You kind of know like the way to grow it is I need to grow it. No one's going to grow it for me.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, then you get some diehard fans that kind of will grow it for you.
Yeah, but it's a numbers thing. Right. Yeah. It's a numbers thing. Like I remember specifically, it's pretty cringe, but like I remember back to this one specific party in Victoria that I went to.
You walk in with a billboard.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, just giant
shirtless
billboard.
Brand painted on your titties. Listen to my album, guys.
Yeah. Everyone got a card.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people were just like rolling their eyes at me. But it was just like, every person was getting a card because it's like, listen to my project, go listen to it. And like, I still have that.
Wow. Yeah. It's almost like a shamelessness in a way.
Shameless promotion.
Shameless promotion, but you also are self-aware that some people are cringing at it and rolling their eye at it.
Oh, yeah.
But you're just kind of like, fuck it. This is part of the journey.
This is part of it.
And I'm going to go to
paid off.
And I'm going to go to this house party. There's 30 people there.
Yeah.
25 of them are going to roll their eyes.
Yeah.
And 5 of them will check it out. And 1 of them will love it.
Yeah. And might tell some people.
Right.
And that's, it's wild.
It's working though.
It's working.
And it's funny because, I'd say numbers wise, just purely talking numbers, you're the most successful musician I know personally. Yeah. And you are definitely the most shameless promoting person I know of musicians.
Yeah.
But it's just funny how it's like 1-to-1.
Yeah.
It's working. Obviously the music's good and that's like a super important part of it.
Yeah.
But I'm always fascinated at the kind of the jaded artist who's like, oh, no one gives a shit. Oh, I can't make any money. But it's like,
I truly believe
you have to grind.
If you're gonna be a musician with albums out that you want people to listen to, you got to be half musician, half marketer. Right? Like it really is. Especially because as we go further and further, there's just more and more and more noise.
Yeah.
Right. There's just so much more noise because there's like just more and more content that's being unloaded every single day. Right. And more people that are just like, I want to be a content creator, that is the number one job that kids want these days.
I've heard this,
is to be like a YouTube creator or a content creator. And so even if you're, if you're making music, then you've got to compete with all of those other distractions that are constantly being presented to people. And, you got to be creative and you got to come up with interesting.
No, man, honestly, I'm super grateful I met you because you helped me because I haven't grinded at the internet at all. So meeting you and knowing someone who's done it, I'm not a full-time musician. I have a day job, right? I love music. Like I'm super passionate, but I have a day job to pay my bills.
Right.
And meeting you is good perspective for me of just like, oh yeah, I haven't promoted my shit. 5% is hard. So why would any part of me expect to make a living off this if I haven't grinded at getting it to people?
Like one of the guerrilla marketing tactics that I used, and I don't know if I've told you this story before, but so the 3rd album was coming out. COVID happened, so there was no live shows that were going on, so I couldn't do like a album release party. So I did something I've always wanted to do, which was I looked for an antique birdcage. I got a fake fish. I put a like a solar powered light into it. I got a plastic cover to put over the top of the birdcage, and then I got Spotify Fishing a Birdcage on a nice plaque. And then at 3:00 in the morning, me and my buddy, we went downtown Galway to an abandoned building. And then we put a 3.8 meter long ladder against the side of this building. And in the pouring rain, because there were less people walking around, so less guards, I climbed up this ladder with a drill and a chain and a lock, and I went up to the second story of this building and clung onto the side of a window pane and threw this chain up to like a small bar that was up to the top so that I could wrap this chain around, got the chain down, and then attached this fish in a bird cage in the antique thing
to this like abandoned building?
To the abandoned building, and I drilled it into the wall, and then put the fish in a bird cage sign up there. And then climbs down, and it was scary as shit.
Right.
And I was shaking like so much of the time, but I was like, I'm doing this, and that stayed up for years. It might even still be up. Yeah. And what's really crazy about it too is they actually repainted that building at a certain point because there was so much graffiti on it, and they left the fish in a bird cage up. Whoa. They painted the rest of it black, and they left up the fish in a bird cage with the sign. So somebody in the city was just like, you know what, leave that up. That's cool.
Looks good.
That's a cool
antique cage
little thing. Yeah,
it's not too brandy.
Yeah,
it's subtle enough.
It was really neat. Yeah, it might be completely destroyed by this point because it's been probably 5 years or something.
Okay, so now you've put in all this work. You've grown this huge internet following. Are you now able to relax a little bit on the marketing side of it? And you just signed with a new record label?
Yeah, signed with Network, which is the second label that I've signed with. Amuse was the first, and then I signed with Network, and they've been amazing.
Are you allowed to talk at all about the last record label and pros and cons and stuff like that?
With Amuse, when I signed with them, what they were offering was they were how they put it was they were saying that they could give me access to something called priority algorithms, and I was pretty frustrated, if not angry, when I heard about that, because what I found out is that I had been swimming uphill for so many years, right?
So basically, it's like certain record labels have some pull with Spotify.
Yeah.
And they can kind of convince, whether it's through money or cutbacks to Spotify.
They have partnerships.
Yeah.
Right?
You'll prioritize our artists.
Yeah.
In the algorithm.
Yeah, in the algorithm, right? So you'll recommend them far more often than people that don't have these deals, right? And so after so many years of, because like,
it felt greasy to you a bit.
Oh yeah. And but the amount of exposure that I was getting through Reddit on a daily basis, mixed with it was like, even though I was still doing the level of marketing that I was doing every day, my listenership, was still really quite low in comparison to a lot of these other artists that are so big. And I was like, how the frick did they do this? And it's a lot, it's through the algorithms, right?
Turns out record labels help if it's a good label,
right? Like and
of course they would have power.
Yeah.
Like just before streaming, record labels were kind of gatekeepers that had power.
Yeah.
That kind of hasn't changed, but the reason you got signed is because they noticed you were growing. Like, that's one thing. A record label's not going to sign an artist that they don't see growth happening.
Absolutely, with. Yeah. It's crazy that like in order for record labels to take you seriously, you have to have an audience already.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have to do the legwork to build up your project to such an extent that they look at it and they go, there's potential here, and you're going to get offered a terrible deal at first.
And for them, it's an investment too. Like it is money.
It is.
Yeah, I'm sure maybe the rep or whatever wants to actually genuinely resonate with the art, but it's a business. And they're looking at your project like, if we invest this much,
can I make money?
Yeah.
That is at the end of the day, that's all that they're looking for, is that they are looking at an artist going, I can make money off of this artist because of the trends of what they're doing. And so I signed with Amuse, and they were great. They flipped the switch. They helped me with the algorithms. But that's where their help ended. It was I tried to negotiate with them for marketing and like other things, but that wasn't a part of it. It was just like, yeah, no, we flip the switch for you. We get our very large percentage, and you're on your own from that point. And
so
then
it's a little bittersweet. It sounds like maybe you wish they would have done a little more, but also they snowballed you.
I would have happily stayed with them if they had put in more effort
with the marketing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But then like, because
we can cut this out if you don't want this. I feel like I remember you saying something like they asked you for money.
Yes.
To pay for marketing.
Yes.
And you said something like,
I don't mind if that stays in the podcast, where it's just like, so what ended up happening at a certain point, like projects growing like crazy. They now know that it's not a risk, because at the beginning it was a risk, right? Because I'm sure it costs them money to be in that partnership deal with Spotify. Project's really growing. It's doing incredibly well. They're making money. I'm making money. And they reach out and they're just like, hey, so we see that your project's doing really well. We would like to invest in you, right? And that's how they worded it, was just like, we would like to invest in you. Our offer is we would like to put $10,000 into marketing from an advance from your end.
Yeah.
Right.
Give us 10 grand so we can market.
Yeah.
And then weren't you like, well, do you want to split it?
No. And then I was like, counter offer. How about I put in 10,000, because that's what you're telling me is what's going to happen is we're going to take $10,000 of my money and put it back into your marketing team. But why don't we both put in $10,000, because we're partners?
Yeah, you're getting a giant chunk of the profits.
Because you're getting a giant chunk of it. And they said no. And I was like, okay, like that.
Good for you, man.
To me, that feels like a slap in the face.
Good for you having boundaries. I bet lots of people will just take what they can get from people. And
yeah. But I would have had to re-sign. And have another 5 years with them or whatever. So I signed with Network, and Network has been awesome. Like, in terms of like, they just give me giant lists of things for me to do all the time. And,
and they do their part.
Yeah, they do their part, and even more so than, it's just like, oh man, I got so much to do all the time. And I have lots that
they kind of hold you accountable.
Oh yeah.
To
they push
workflow and content things too, or
so we probably don't have unlimited amounts of time.
Yeah, we're at a 1 hour, so we can start kind of slowly wrapping up.
So I'll tell you, maybe like kind of getting close to the end of this thing. I'll tell you one of the more exciting things that it's happening in the next little while here.
Do it.
So for Badger, what's happening here is we're going to be doing a music video for Badger. Badger, the song is about a motivational badger that's clinging on your back, that constantly motivates you. So Network, one of the things I asked them to do is I was just like, can you help me find a director for this idea that I had?
Quentin Tarantino.
That would be
He's
sick.
Doing your music video.
That would be amazing.
You're going to have 100 badgers eat someone.
So what's really neat is I met a puppeteer recently.
Nice.
Right. So he's going to build me a custom badger, and he's going to puppet the badger.
Nice.
And then I've got so there's a producer that Network hooked me up with in Calgary, and we're going to do a meeting here soon. But the idea is that we are going to be we're going to have it so that I am in a boxing ring with Life, and Life is personified as a fella or a lady. I don't know where we're going with this, or a non-binary. If we want to be, but so like, they're going to be in their giant morph suit. Do you know what a morph suit is? So you can't see their face and you can't see anything. Yeah. And they're just in this giant spandex suit, and we're going to be in the ring, and it's going to have Life written across their chest, and they are going to beat the shit out of me over and over and over again.
They get to be the dominatrix now.
That's right.
They're in charge.
Yeah. And the motivational badger will be the thing that's like, get back in the ring, right? Like throwing me back in there.
Because the song is kind of funny in a way. Like there's like a cheekiness in it.
Yeah.
So kind of a funny video makes sense for it.
Totally. Yeah. And it's going to be super fun. Like some of the things that we talked about is like Life fights unfairly. So like weapons will just appear in its hand, you know, like police baton out of nowhere, you know, lemon gun. Because when life gives you lemons, right? Like shooting
sometimes
me with
it
the lemon
shoots you
gun,
with them.
right?
It's not always lemonade. Yeah.
So that's
that sounds
the next
fun,
thing
man.
that we're gonna be working on.
Okay, to wrap it up and finish off, thank you for coming again.
Yeah.
And Sharon, I'm sure your fans will dig this. You said you've never really done a long form interview, have you?
No.
So there you go, Fish in a Birdcage fans. You're welcome. All thanks to waynekto. You can all send him love letters and dick pics if you want.
Thanks, Wayne.
Okay, I wanted to just quickly to end it, shout out a couple albums that you wanted to shout out. This is the homework segment where you go listen to some music that Dusty likes. So you remember them?
Yes. So one of them that I highly, highly recommend is The Crane Wife by the Decemberists. I love that album so much. Plans by Death Cab for Cutie is another one that I kind of grew up listening to, and I just love it. Oh My Heart by Mother is, you know, the reason why my work exists in the way that it does. And then same with Tick Tock Tick by the Zolas. These are like, you know, just like 4
they're in your DNA kind of as an artist.
Yeah, for sure. And then, you know, there's like I really like Zero by Damien Rice. That's another one that I really love.
And yeah, we'll put him like in the show notes or whatever so people can see it and check it out. So I had a couple come up from yours. So I tapped into those 4 albums you shared. I didn't listen to all of them all the way through.
Yeah.
But the Mother one genuinely like pulled me in.
Nice.
And I liked it a lot. And it made me think of Mars Volta. Did you ever get into Mars Volta?
Yeah, Mars Volta's great. Yeah.
So I started feeling like Mars Volta is like Mother on crack.
Oh yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, I could see that.
So I'm going to put that in the homework, some old Mars Volta, some new Mars Volta.
Nice.
And then another band, because your sound has kind of this like Celtic adjacent thing going on. Like I wouldn't say it's full Celtic, but like you can hear this Celtic thing throughout it a lot.
Right.
And your melodies and parts of it just reminds me of this band called Fair to Midland.
Cool.
I know I've sent them to you before. I don't know if you've checked them out yet. But
I need to.
It's like Celtic adjacent mixed with like heavy alt rock.
I think I might have looked them up. But I'll need to do that again.
Yeah. So that's the homework. Go listen to stuff. Dusty from Fish in a Birdcage. Thank you very much.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you to Wayne, the producer. I'm Braden, aka Troo Knot. Okay, bye.
All right. Bye.